Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining WCI Consulting's webinar series. Today, we're going to do part one of SAP BusinessObjects best practices. We'll cover a number of tips, tricks, and helpful hints that will help you hopefully get more out of your BusinessObjects deployment. I'd like to always start off with our WCI mission statement. I feel it lets you know where we're coming from as a partner and where we would like our relationship to, be with you as a client. Just a little bit of background for WCI. We've been around since 1998. We specialize in business intelligence, pretty much all areas. As you know, being on here, we are very strong in business objects, and we also have the new service, Instant Access BI. It basically puts a consultant at your fingertips during your workday. It's an online service that we provide. You can call them up, or we set up an online portal, and it's exclusive for you, and you can just basically bounce off ideas or questions that you may have, or if you get stuck developing reports or anything like that. With that being said, let's turn it over to Neil Dave. He is going to be presenting today, and he's going to be covering some of the best practices that you can have for your BusinessObjects deployment.
Thanks, Trent. So today, part one of the best practices, there's two topics I wanted to discuss. One is splitting out the adaptive processing server, and also the second tip will be top-level security and how to implement that into your CMC and into your BO environment. So we have found at WCI that these two tricks have made it a lot easier when you are deploying a BusinessObjects 4.0 environment. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one, like I mentioned, is splitting out the APS, or the Adaptive Processing Server. So the APS itself is just responsible as one of the services that make up the BusinessObjects environment. And as a default, it's only allocated to 1 gig of RAM of Java heap size. Along with that, the APS is responsible just for processing requests for a variety of sources within BusinessObjects. A lot of times what we have found, and what SAP has found, is that this has been a very hard process or a overload on this specific service. So in order to fix that, what they recommend is splitting out the APS. So what I meant by specific issues you could run into if you leave this as is if a user tries to create a web intelligence report, whenever they create the new Webby report, they could run into an issue where it says connection error or out-of-memory error. Sometimes if they're able to execute a report and they attempt to create a chart, they could receive a big red X in the charting display. These are all because of the fact that the APS is running low in memory. For some of you administration folks out there that handle the CMC, if you run into an issue where the APS just continually stays in a starting state and never runs, that's another issue with that, where a symptom of running out of specific memory. So as a recommendation, what SAP has asked us to do, or as what we do at WCI, is we found a way to split out these services. Now what I have here, I'm pulling up a PDF document which was made in 2012. It's called the Best Practices for SAP BO4 Adaptive Processing Server. So this, as you can tell, came out in November 26th, and what this tells you is the specific way, toward the bottom of this page, you'll see that here are the different services that can be used to split out the adaptive processing server. There are total, and within the actual processing server itself, there's 20 services in there. And so what SAP has recommended that you split these out into 6 different categories or groups in order to make sure that you soften the load on the original APS. So as you can see here, you've got one called the APS DSL Bridge. It contains these 4 specific services. and then the SAP recommended memory use. So this right here denotes the actual gigs of memory that they recommend that you use. I will say this, this is what SAP recommends, but every company is different, and the physical allocation memory is entirely up to you. So like I said, everybody can be different. This is what SAP recommends, but like I said, if you have a different set of physical requirements on your BO server, that's not an issue at all. One of the things that we have run into or seen is that this splitting out the APS does take some planning on your part. So it's just important that you plan the right allocation of memory into the right sources. Anyway, just getting back on track here, the DSL bridge is one that we recommend that you split. The other one we recommend is the Webby grouping. Charts, analysis is another one. Connectivity, other, and then search. The other ones like the LCM and the publishing ones are not necessarily, you can split those out if you need to, but those are used for more promotions of migrating reports from one environment to the other. If that's something your deployment is needing, then definitely you can split those out. Okay? So now, like I said, that these are the recommended sizes or the gigs that should be allocated, and each of these groupings denotes the different types of services that should go along with it. So what I'm going to do is, for the sake of time, I'm only going to split out one of these and show you an example of how that works. This is the one that is a critical one that needs to be split. So let me go and show you how we go and split the APS DSL bridge. So I'm in the CMC. If I go to servers, and then I'm going to click back on server list and create a new server. If it will allow me to. Oh, got an error message there. Go ahead and log back in. And while that's coming up, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to split one of those out. And what you're going to do is, when you split one of those out, you're going to have you're going to allocate a specific amount of memory to it. And so when you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to pick that up, and then from there you can split out multiple services as well in order to return that correct amount of memory. So it looks like it's about to go through here. And this is a process that normally doesn't take a whole lot of time. The issue that you typically run into is just making sure that you have the correct amount of memory allocated to it. So if I go into servers, and then I'm going to click on server list and go to manage new server. All right. It's going to take a second for this to load up. On this screen, what you're going to see is it's going to ask you what type of server do you want to create and what type of category does it need to belong to. In this case, since this is the APS or the adaptive processing server, I'm going to use connectivity because that's where the actual server is being used. It's under the connectivity services. So if I hit next here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over those three services that SAP recommends. So the first one I'm going to bring over is DSL Bridge. I'm going to bring over Web Intelligence Monitoring Service, and then Security Token. All right. So bring that over. I'm going to hit Next. Then it's going to ask me to name it. So when I name it, I'm just going to say underscore DSL underscore bridge, and then hit Create. All right, so what that did is it created a server for me, and as you note here, it's in a stop and disable state. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allocate the memory to it. So if I right-click and go to Properties, and under this command line parameters, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy all this, and paste it into Notepad. And then from here, I'm just going to go to Edit, Find, and then I'm just going to type in XMLX 1G. The reason why I'm typing in 1G is because that's the default allocation that's being set on the APS. So once I find that, that's where I can identify where to change that number to. So it tells me right here that this number is at 1G, and this is the only place it's located. So I'm going to change it to what SAP recommends is 4. So I'm going to change it to 4 on here. All right. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to copy that back again, and then paste that back into the CMC under the command line. Once I've pasted that, I'm going to also scroll down, and where it says automatically start the server when the SIA starts, I'm going to check that. The reason why I'm going to check that is because if you remember, the SIA is the brains behind BusinessObjects. So if the SIA, once it starts, I'm going to automatically tell it that once the SIA starts, I want all services that are with that to start with it. But if I uncheck this, if I left it blank, then I'd have to go in and manually start it. So this just and this automatically starts it for me, so I don't worry about it going forward. So I'm going to hit Save and Close here. Okay. Now, like I said, I was only going to show you one example of how this works. Once you split out the other 5 different categories that are listed in this document, once you split those out, what you can do is just follow the same steps, allocate the right memory that's best used for you, and then after that's done, make sure to keep this in a stop state, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the APS itself, and then I'm going to hit stop right here. All right, I'm going to give it a second to stop. All right. And then once it's stopped, I'm going to right-click on there, and then select Services. And remember, this is the original APS. So in here, what I'm going to do is it lists all the services that run with it. I'm going to remove those services that belong to it. So the DSO bridge, I'm going to move that back over. I'm going to move over the web intelligence monitoring, and then the security token. I'm going to bring those back over. Hit OK. And remember, once you've added all 5 or 6 different groupings or services, once you split it out, you can move those back over again from the original APS. All right. So once that's done, then I can just start these services. I'm going to start this one, and then I can go and start all my other services. All right, and then once that's completed, you should have a working environment, a more stable environment once users are creating reports, and it makes it a lot easier going forward. So that's the first tip and trick that I wanted to show you. The second tip I had was under the security piece within BusinessObjects. So a lot of times, or a lot of deployments that we have seen, we've run into an issue where users have set up security on individual folders, but not necessarily at the root level. So it's very important that security is set up properly in the root folder. A lot of times, as some of you administrators may know that have experience with running, setting up security in CMC, it can get very granular, it can get extremely complex, and a lot of times users can be given rights or taken away rights that shouldn't have been the case. So it's very important that to get off onto a good start, that security is set up at the top level. So what we recommend at WCI is that we recommend that you set up top-level security under the folders. This is within the CMC, under folders, universes, and then connections. Okay? So the first place I'm going to start is under folders. Now, if I don't set up root folders, if I don't set up security in the root folder, I've logged in as a test user, you'll notice that the folders is disappeared. It does not show up here. So I don't have access to view the public folder. And as some of you might remember, once a user has been created in Business Objects without them being assigned to any group, they're automatically assigned to the Everyone group. So that's where it's very important that when you set up the top level, that the Everyone group is set up here, set up properly, and once that's been completed, then you can start going in and putting in your individual groupings for individual security models for within the folders or within your universes as well. So if I go to Manage, under Folders, Manage, Top-Level Security in all folders, it's asking me, you want to change the security? I'm going to say yes to that. And what I'm going to do is it's going to give me a list of 2 groups that have access to the top level. The first group is the Administrator group. The second group is the Everyone group. Now, the Everyone group is right now set to no access because, as I say, if I go back in here, I don't see the top-level folder in here. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the security for the Everyone group. I'm going to go to Assign Security, and then I'm just going to go to the Advanced tab. I'm going to go to Add or Remove Rights, and then under the General here, I'm going to scroll to the very bottom, and where it says View Objects, I'm going to turn that right on, and then I'm going to uncheck this box. The reason why I'm unchecking this box is that it's just telling me that I can see the root folder, but I can't see all other subfolders underneath that. So what that means is that I can't see any other folders that the Everyone group doesn't belong to. So if I set that right on there correctly, what's going to happen is that that folder for the Everyone group, that folder should show up. I should be able to see the folder now. So if I log in and log back into BI Launchpad, I'm back in the CMC. Once I hit OK here, I can close out of that. And what I should see in here is the folders in that lower area. Like I mentioned, that's under Folders. You can also do that under Universes. The same type of setup is done under Universes. Once you're in the Universes, if you just go to Manage and then Top Level, and then implement the exact same security right that I just did, that allows the user to see the folder, the root folder, and doesn't necessarily mean that they have access to all the other universes in here. It just has access to that root folder, which allows them to be able to run reports based off the universe. So a lot of times, once you've done this, once you've set up that security right, the Everyone group can see that root level folder, and which I already have set up here. Once that's already set up, now what I can do is if I go to an individual universe in here, I can actually now set up security on here. So under, like, for example, recruits, what's going to show up here is under the Everyone group, it should be inherited, the rights from that top level folder should be inherited for that. All right? And right now it's set to no access just because I don't have the inheritance set up there. But once the Everyone group has been inherited correctly, that's going to inherit down, and then you can actually make your changes to a specific group on here. All right? So like I said, under universes, folders, and then the last one is connections. If you make the change under connection, you set the manage to top level security under all connections. If you set that to the same right, you should be set correctly there. That's pretty much all I had. Trent, I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Neil, very much. We've got a question here. And people are wondering, that initial document that you showed for splitting the adapted processing servers, what is that document called?
Yeah, what it's called is called the Best Practices for SAP BI 4.0 Adaptive Processing Server. It's on the SAP website. If we can, I can let me show that back to you.
Yeah, if you want, if anyone wants to know directly where that is, we'll show you right now, and also you can feel free to email us. But there, right there. You can see the title of it and potentially look up it on the SAP website, or feel free to contact us. And we've got, I'll put up our information here, but we're running right about the 20-minute mark. We want to thank everyone for joining us. As always, please feel free to contact us, whether it's email or giving us a call. We love your input on future topics, how we can improve, any questions specifically about this webinar or any of the webinars we do. We have a number of webinars up on YouTube, and we've got several options on our website. We just launched the new one. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email us or give us a call. Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day, and look for us in 2 weeks for part 2 of this best tips, tricks, and practices for SAP BusinessObjects.